Welcome to People Doing Good for Others. Welcome to People Doing Good for Others, where we praise and celebrate, hold in the light, and honor those who truly make significant contributions in our communities. I'm Gary York, and I'm grateful to be with you today. I want to thank Wilkes Communications, RiverStreet Productions, and 100.9 WIFM for bringing this series, and again, we're grateful for this opportunity. My featured guest today, Ms. Pam Huffman. She's the principal at West Wilkes Middle School. With her is a 3-year veteran who just graduated from the middle school, will be a freshman at West Wilkes High School. Her name is Sydney Church, and Ms. Huffman and Ms. Church have been together for 3 years with a program, The Leader in Me, a Stephen Covey initiative, if you will, about the 7 habits of highly successful people. Wilkes County is particularly the West Wilkes Middle School, is a Lighthouse designated school with the Stephen Covey Leader in Me. So we're going to learn how folks have embraced this opportunity and the tremendous success and molding lives, if you will. So good morning to you, Ms. Huffman.
Good morning, Gary.
And to see you, Ms. Church. So tell us about the first opportunity you had to be involved in the Leader in Me.
I had an opportunity to actually visit a symposium, and we asked our central services to go visit one, and we actually went to South Carolina. And part of that was actually touring other schools. And the tour, along with a one-day workshop, is really what caught our attention. Because if you can see the Leader in Me in action, our students take on ownership for their own success, also for their own opportunities that they have. But they take on all of those things, and it's great just to see them shine. And we wanted our students to have that same opportunity. Our students in middle school, they actually, they'll come into 6th grade. They have an opportunity to participate in some clubs. We have a drama club, some other things, but 6th graders really don't have an opportunity to play very many sports.
All right.
So this was an opportunity for them to become more involved, just with you know, maturing themselves as an adult and learning some of those lifelong skills that they'll need throughout life. That, along with the opportunity for the 7th and 8th graders to continue to grow. A 7th grader, now, it's real important with their academics and their attendance throughout the year that they monitor that. Because those things are what's actually used when they apply for early college high school. And our early college high school this year took about 23 to 25 students from West Wilkes Middle School into Wilkes Early College High School. And what that means is those students will go and attend for 5 years. Right. Some of them are superstar graduates. And they'll finish in 4 years, but they'll not only have a high school diploma, but they'll also have a 2-year degree. And some of them have more than 1 degree when they graduate. So if you look at that and think about some of the skills that our students need, they need to be maturing in the fact, excuse me, that middle school now is also one of those areas where that they branch off and they're determining what their future is going to be. Absolutely. Good. So they actually begin touring the community college, and they've toured some since they were even in elementary. But they'll tour in 7th grade. In 8th grade, they go on another tour. And then and I say that in the fall, because then about December, January, they begin, if they want to apply, they apply in their 8th grade year. And then they will interview about February, March, and then about April and May, they either get a acceptance letter or a denial letter. And we have several students, you know, some that are denied the opportunity to go. So it's becoming a lot more competitive, that whole process is. But we also need to have something in place to where our students are learning to be resilient. And if one door closes, they need to understand that another door will open, and how to help them be strong through that process. Because most of their parents didn't actually apply for a school like that until they were juniors and seniors in high school.
Ms. Huffman, go back to that moment in that Covey seminar when you were first introduced to this, we could bring this back to Wilkes County. Tell me, what were you thinking then?
Well, if you actually read The Leader in Me, that book is actually talks about A.B. Combs Elementary in North Carolina, and that was one of the first schools that actually used it. Then, after reading the book, the middle school principal sought permission to go to the symposium. As we were sitting there and going through that process and listening, they actually took us through a one-day training, which our entire staff, that includes our teachers assistants, our office staff, our custodians. Everyone has been trained in our school in those 7 habits and how to apply them, how to encourage our students to apply them. What's our personal victory, our private victory, and a public victory? Which one of those steps support that? And you know, as we were sitting there, lots of times we, you know, go through the whole process of adopting a reading text series, for example. Okay, we bring that in, and this is the product that we're going to use for X amount of years. Well, when we bring that in, we don't train the entire school. We train just those ELA teachers how to use that. This is something that we brought on board that would make us better individuals if we were personally, you know, in our professional lives, out in the community. Right. And hopefully others can see us using those 7 habits on a daily basis. But it's applicable anywhere, and it doesn't matter how old or how young you are. You can utilize those things. And you know, the biggest thing was reflection. We had so much reflection through that one day of, you know, what would you recommend? What's going on with, you know, in the past, what would your decision have been? What will it be now, based on the fact that you know you need to begin with the end in mind. You need to be able to put first things first. And how can you be proactive to make all of those things work? And those are the 3 that we spent the most time on. So,
okay, do that again, the 3.
Being proactive, beginning with the end in mind, and putting first things first. Okay.
Sydney, the first time that you realized that you might have the opportunity to get involved in The Leader in Me, to be an ambassador, share with us your feelings at that moment when you embraced the opportunity to get involved.
Well, I was really excited about the opportunity because it was not just for certain kids, it was for anyone. Anyone could do it, like boys, girls, anyone could do it, 6th grade, 7th grade, or 8th grade. So I was kind of interested that 6th graders could do something that 8th graders could do, because usually sometimes you don't have the opportunity like sports.
All right.
So it's something that you can kind of work with all 3 grade levels. So it's kind of, you can like contrast back and forth between all 3 grade levels and kind of like see maybe who your friends are, and just work with the other grades, because it's kind of cool to work with older kids as well as younger kids.
So can you share, please share with us when the training started and maybe the things you learned early on. Can you do that for me?
Well, when we first started, like obviously you got your application back once you like applied for it, and because it was picked by the staff.
Teachers the first year.
Yes, the teachers were picked for the first year. And then the next year was application. But once you like found out and once we started, we would have a meeting and we would get together and we would read the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, as an ambassador group. And we would read that with Miss Huffman and Miss Boynton, our assistant principal. And we would kind of work through all those habits and kind of work out like how we were going to teach them and how we were going to do certain things.
So an ambassador now is a group that excel, that carry the message. Is that a pretty good way to say that? Say that? Tell us about some of the things an ambassador will do.
Well, we have community day at our school where people can come and tour our school and we will give them tours. So we do tours and we teach our students lessons at the end of the days. And we also will go, last year we went on a business trip, like where we went around to see different businesses. And we actually got to come here one day and just we went around to see like how they use their mission statements and how they use habits throughout their lives and their day-to-day.
Tell us how many, Ms. Huffman, how many students at West Wilkes Middle School in total are part of the team, the leaders? Is that a good way to say that?
We have anywhere from about 24 to 30 students who are ambassadors, the leaders. And the way that we've set it up at this time, which we use staff input and we use student input, those students can serve 2 years out of their 3. Sydney got on board early, so she had the opportunity to be an ambassador all 3 years. But even if they're not an ambassador that 1 year, like Sydney, she didn't have to be an ambassador. One of the things that she did was she would tour. If we had someone that was interested and they wanted to check out West Wilkes Middle School, maybe they were coming from a homeschool situation or a private school, and they wanted to, or even moving into the community. They wanted to check out West Wilkes Middle School, the parent and the student could come, and lots of days they'd just call our office. Our office staff would go ahead and call Miss Sydney up, and sometimes Sydney didn't even know that she was going to be called out of class for that, but I have that much trust and faith in her to be able to take them, explain everything that's going on, what the process is, how our data boards work. We have scoreboards throughout our school on every hall that on a daily to a weekly basis, our teachers, teams, and students are tracking, for example, their attendance. And we do that because we have 2 teams on a hall. So sometimes they're having a little bit of competition to see who's doing the best. Sometimes it's math. Maybe math, scores. Sometimes they have scoreboards, like in science on the 8th grade. They had how many lessons were actually completed, and that's why we really encourage and want parents to come out for the student lead conferences, because when they come in, parents get a chance to allow their student to sit there and take ownership of their notebook, and they have things. Do you want to share with them the sections that are in the notebook?
Yeah, so we have our lead notebook, and we have like our personal bank account, our data, all about me. What else is there? I can't remember all 5. Your
personal mission statement.
Your mission statement was in there, and it's just kind of stuff that you can kind of keep in there. And we will have our parent conference like lead kind of thing that we go by to talk with our parents about, to show them our goals and like what we have achieved and stuff. And we can also put like our awards in there and stuff, so when they come, they can see those things.
Okay. When I visited the middle school, I'd been invited to come, and I came to the door and was welcomed in, and there was a certain feeling about excitement, about involvement, about being a part of something really special. And before anyone said anything, just walking into the school, I felt inspired in a special way. Tell us about the culture, if you will, the culture of a Leader in Me school.
Well, our ambassadors, Sydney spoke earlier about how that they meet. They had like a lead teacher that they went to every week. And one of the things about the Franklin Covey, the whole process, is they provide they provide books and lessons, a series for the 6th grade, a series for the 7th, and a series for the 8th. They also have like teacher's editions. I don't know how to explain them any other way, but those teacher's editions are actually given to the students. And then that lead teacher, staff member, would sit there, let them go through those lessons, and if they didn't like those lessons, they have the autonomy to go back and change it, create it. Sometimes you guys, what's a lesson that you might, or a tool that you might use for your lesson?
Like we use Kahoot and Quizlet, and so it's kind of like a fun game to get everyone involved, so it's not really boring. So you can kind of add some fun to that and add some game to that.
I liked what you were saying, Sydney, about this is for all students, that you can be a superstar, can be an ambassador, can be a contributor. You don't necessarily have to be the basketball player or running
Make straight
track.
A's.
Or right. I want to ask about study habits. Do you see things change in youngsters that, tell us about how youngsters change about the academic side of a leader in me?
Well, I'm going to let Sydney probably speak to the study habits, and I'm going to tell you probably, is that okay?
Sure.
How that the school sets it up. We have, at our school, we have a Zoom meeting that happens twice a quarter. One is at the interim time or progress report time, and the other one is at the report card time. Now, that is similar to FaceTiming someone, because we will have, in the beginning, I led it, and then all the teachers on their smart boards, they had that interactive session on their smart boards, and all the students had their report cards or their interim reports sitting in front of them. They start, and we go through and model one to begin with, and after we model one, then we start with the second one. And for example, we might say, okay, go ahead, like N1 is representative of your first quarter, N2 means your second quarter. Go ahead, take 2 fingers, place on those, and then do the comparison. Did you go up with growth, or did you maintain, or did you decline? And then they've got a code out here that they're supposed to write. How many points did you increase or decrease? Student comments, there's a certain way we code those with, this is a compliment that the teacher gave me, I might want to highlight during my conference. So we look at lots of things. We also look at attendance. So they have an attendance sheet. Attendance is written, and we do the same thing. We lead them through one, model it, and then the second one we guide them. So they take an attendance sheet, and then we run them a year-long calendar, and that stays in their lead notebook the entire year. So if we're out on, let's say, August the 27th, then they'll go to August the 27th on the calendar, and they're expected to highlight that. At the bottom each quarter, they'll go to the bottom, and they make just a quick little table. And what they do is they start looking throughout that quarter, and you guys will tally up how many Mondays they missed, how many Tuesdays they missed, Wednesdays, and so on. Because you and I both know, having worked in the workforce, lots of times our employees sometimes, as adults, they tend to sometimes have habits of missing Mondays, possibly Fridays. But it also teaches us, and it teaches them things. For example, you might have a student that misses lots of Wednesdays. Well, why is that? That might be because the orthodontist or special care that they're getting and receiving is only in town, our town, on a certain day, and they are only open certain hours. So we just need to as educators, be cognizant of that and try to work through that process. But then the students create their own. I'm going to let you take over from there.
So, like how she was saying that she would be the leader of the Zoom, and so after that we took over with students, like a student being the leader of Zoom. So they got to be the ones to go with the students throughout the whole school and like show them an example, and then they would do it with them to teach them how to do it, and do it like she said, how they would just go with them throughout the whole thing. And so then a student would be able to do that by themselves.
So that platform, that Zoom platform, has allowed us, it would be very difficult as a principal to go to every single classroom. But for that 30 minutes it's designated, because we've got it down to about 30 minutes easy now. It didn't work that way the first time, I'll tell you that. But what it's enabled us to do is everybody in the whole school, 600 students approximately, is doing that at the same time, and the teachers are supporting them and walking through. Now when the parents come in for that conference, then the student has spent enough time analyzing their own data that they should be able to tell the parents. And last year, it was interesting because one of the staff members noticed that some of the parents would, and you know, this is an honest statement as a parent. If my child, and I've looked at my child's report card, let's say my child had a 63. And I'm looking at that, what I tend to do as a parent is all of a sudden I start taking over. I mean, not meaningfully, but I'll say, what in the world is that grade? You know, what happened here? You know better than that. I know, did you turn in such assignment? I have taken over at that point. So what we're trying to do is to allow our students the opportunity that they take ownership. I know why that is like that, and I know what I'm going to do next time to pull that grade up. Or I've maintained and I want to continue maintaining. This is the one thing I'd like to improve upon. And when they write their goals, they have to use the 7-habit language. So this time I'm going to be proactive by, so they're telling the how. You know, there's a book out, you know, the why. But this is more about the how. Lots of people, we can tell you why something's wrong, but we cannot tell you how to fix it. So that's embedding that habit. So would you like to answer Mr. York's question about how you've used it and how have you improved with any of your habits, or you see students improving?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it makes a big change because like using the habits like putting first things first, it allows the students to go home, get their homework done before they come back for their ball practice or whatever they do. And at the same time being proactive. Even if all your grades are caught up and you're doing good on everything, still being proactive still means like reading for the week, studying math for the week, just to keep your mind fresh. So you can see a change in like their academics from score levels going up because you're still using the 7 habits, like putting first things first. So maybe like turning in your homework on time, so you're putting the first things first, and so your grade can go up. So I think it's a big change in academics as well.
I sense from Ms. Church a confidence, courage. How do we? I know that. How about talk about that confidence piece of being a teenager, being in the middle school, and the impact that the leader in me, how it helps specifically in folks growing in confidence, if you will. Will you do that?
We see a lot of our students, maybe they're not comfortable speaking in front of a large group. One thing that we put in place with the ambassadors, typically you would have had one. A lot of schools that we went to and modeled, they would only have one per classroom. We chose to put 2 in ours in the middle school, and the reason that we did at West Middle, the reason we did is because that way, that gave them a support person there. So if, you know, sometimes even as adults, when we're out and we're speaking, sometimes we'll freeze up and I need someone to think of a word, it just will not come to me. They've got someone there and they know, what is it called when, you know, it just gives them a little bit of comfort there. Right. The same way as it would us as adults, and they need to learn that, oh, that's not such a big deal. We just keep rolling with it and go. And then it also, I think, helps with their confidence, wouldn't you say? Yeah. When you're speaking out in public. But they've had lots of opportunities. One thing that they do as well is each month when we have our Lighthouse, that's our school leadership meeting with our entire staff, one representative from each grade level, exploratory, teachers' assistants. We have a parent that serves on that committee as well. But one ambassador from each grade level will come and speak. They've got the first like 5 minutes. And they talk about things like that are going really well in the school and some things that aren't. And that's where that whole thing came back out about the students went back and they created the parent norms when they came. So they go through that first now and set the foundation for how they want that meeting to flow. They also came up and decided with our fundraiser last year how they wanted that money spent. So we've done lots of things and tried to listen to their voice. One year we had some bullying going on in a certain area of the school, and that was brought by a certain grade level and said, we need extra eyes, you need to be aware, this is what was said when. So they get an opportunity to try to change things and make our school a better place.
I think it's time to talk about your website that talks about being the first school in North Carolina to be a Lighthouse designation. Let's do that and just really get into how do you become a Lighthouse school?
Well, you implement the Leader in Me program. It took us, this was our 3rd year from the beginning when we first really started. But you get to work at your own pace. And you mentioned that we are a first Lighthouse school. We are the first middle school Lighthouse. Now there are elementaries that have done it with a K-8, but even when we were trying to tour and go to the symposiums, there are very few middle schools. And a lot of people would say, oh, well, they need to do that in elementary. And you know, our voice was heard with our county, and we're very grateful for that. Because, again, going back to like I mentioned earlier, our students need something that teaches some resiliency and how you continue and how you can apply habits over and over and over. Some of our students don't have any support. Adults need that too. We need that encouragement. Yes. But what we had to do was for 3 years we worked, and then we would have Franklin Covey representatives come in, and they would also listen to us. We have a lady, her name is Dr. Eason, and Dr. Eason, she is a former educator from the coast, and she would come in, she would mesh what we had going on, for example, with our data. And this is the part that maybe sometimes the community doesn't hear, but Franklin Covey, the representative that we have, our coach goes through like our data, where we are, talks to the administration about where we want to go, what are our county-wide goals, and then they come back in and you mesh that Leader in Me with what our county goals are, and then how you can marry those together. And that's been really powerful. I will say this, if you're looking for results just like that, you have to lay the foundation, and that foundation has to be laid firmly and put in place with everyone, and then it has to grow. Being able to actually get our data boards, our scoreboards up and everything, that didn't fall into place all over the entire school until last year. But then they have a process where they send people from across North Carolina. I think we had one that was from Louisiana or Alabama, and I think our other assessor was probably from Ohio. But those are people, they're from different parts of the United States that actually come in and they assess your school.
And evaluate your progress.
They do. And one thing that they did, they took some of the ambassadors and talked to them. But they want to hear from the students. They wanted to hear from our parents in our community. So we had, we had some folks that had been active and supportive of that the entire time. Those folks came in and spoke to them. So you have to, it's not something that you can sit there and you can wing it. You're not going to be able to, because that culture that you were talking about, they want to see that that is true culture, that it's embedded, and you're trying to maintain that.
Not just to show.
That's exactly right.
We live these values.
And all 4 middle schools are Leader in Me schools. With that process, North Wilkes Middle School is also a Lighthouse school. And the teachers, the staff got to choose how fast they progressed.
I want to thank our sponsors, Wilkes Communications, for having you here, and the RiverStreet Network and WIFM. And let's conclude with a brief statement about how this opportunity has enriched your life, Sydney Church.
I believe that this opportunity has enriched my life because it's helped me not just become a leader, but continue to be a leader, and helping with not just in school, but outside of school as well.
So you bring these things home with you then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I can go to church and be a leader. I can come home and be a leader.
Wow.
So.
Way to go. Ms. Huffman, your enrichment.
think it's really brought focus to how I utilize my time and
Time management. Okay.
and how I prioritize things.
First things first.
Absolutely. And then the other thing is, we're never there yet.
We're never there.
We're never
We're
there.
always digging.
Always striving to improve.
Okay.
And
I
that's,
want to thank y'all for being here today. What an honor to have you with us. And
thank you.
again, this is People Doing Good for Others. I'm Gary York, and we've been so honored today with Ms. Sydney Church, who will be a freshman at West Wilkes High School, and Ms. Pam Huffman, who brought the leader in me to Wilkes County and achieved the wonderful designation of a Lighthouse school. Thank you for being here, and what an honor to have our friends from Wilkes County Schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Come again.
Thank you.
Thank you.